Good evening to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our off-season discussion, hurricane outlook and discussion, the first one of the off-season, one of probably many, till of course May of 2024. But here we are, first one being December 3rd, 2023. Let's get right with it, shall we? Let's start off with a simple, going easy for this first discussion, but we're going to start off with a simple look at the Atlantic. This is a wide shot. This is a satellite view, and you could see across the Atlantic a bunch of cloud cover, a big system. This is over the United States, and you could see a lot of strong upper level winds, not only here, but everywhere in the Atlantic. You see a bunch of these strong winds cutting strongly from the west to the east. That is strong upper level wind shear, hence why we don't really see development of this time of year, but nonetheless we see a lot of cloud cover, a lot of convective activity, mainly associated with a bunch of these extratropical systems that we see right now. Very typically, obviously, as we're heading into winter, we'll see more of these. And this one in particular, this one right here, bringing a bunch of rain to me here in New York City today. Pretty dreary and, let's face it, not really nice day to be out for me today in New York, but it should clear out by tomorrow. Lucky, and since we're talking about United States weather, that's what I thought I might as well start off with. And this weather system is not only bringing rain to me, but look at that, it's also bringing snow to portions of the northern New England area, including, I believe, winter storm warnings. I'm gonna actually want to check how much snow we could potentially see in some of these areas because I haven't checked it so far today. So accumulations in some areas between 7 and 11 inches. So this is going to be a definite significant storm. Some areas even seeing up to 9 to 14 inches. So definitely a significant storm there. Probably going to see some good accumulation. And of course, in this general area of northern Maine, and of course, all of northern New England, if you are under a winter storm warning, obviously, to not drive on the roads and stay safe. I do believe also in New York, in northwestern New York, right near the Great Lakes region, I believe they also got their fair share of snow with a lake effect sort of situation not long ago too. So I guess the bottom line that I'm trying to point out is winter is basically just upon us, just about upon us. We're in December. Already meteorological winter. The astronomical winter obviously doesn't begin till December 20th, but still, we're starting to see an uptick in winter weather even here in Idaho. And look at that as well in Colorado. Probably some higher elevation snow, I'd imagine, in these mountains, but still, winter storm warnings in effect, probably heavy snow for them. With Eric Webb, in terms of United States weather, I did find this very interesting, mostly for me because I do live along the East Coast, and of course I am a snow lover. But nonetheless, in terms of winter, especially for the next few weeks, this could be an interesting thing to watch. And people have, including Eric Webb, have been talking about this for quite a while, about how this winter could be shaping up in terms of NAO, which is something that we're going to talk about, and most importantly, cold weather and potential for cold, stormy, and snowy weather along the East Coast. And I found this interesting in an Eric Webb thread that he posted. This was today, actually. And he did say, for now, we're probably going to see a pattern that would favor a more milder mid to late December, a more milder December as typical for strong El Nino over the eastern U.S. And then he shows some graphics as well. Strong high pressure. And you can see this is the GFS ensemble that he's showing strong high pressure in the east, as you can see here. Very much favorable and indicative of a warmer weather pattern. But he does mention, we're going to scroll down and try to find it. He does mention somewhere, still got to try to find it, but he does mention that this is typical onset periods of sudden stratospheric warming events, which can last several weeks, and they're often mild over the eastern United States. And he does mention this year doesn't seem to be any different. Why is this significant? Is because typically, and this is more winter sort of weather talk, but typically in sudden stratospheric warming events, especially if they connect to the atmosphere, the lower levels of the atmosphere where our weather is most impacted on. They can help they can help kind of flip the pattern and kind of strengthen the subtropical jet and allow for more blocking in the northern portions of the northern latitudes, and therefore more troughing and a more active weather pattern across the southern latitudes, and therefore chances for more snow, chances for more colder weather because the colder weather will be displaced further south because increased heights in the northern latitudes, hence sudden stratospheric warming, because this has to do with the polar vortex, by the way. If you're not aware, we're talking about the polar vortex here, in which that, once it kind of breaks up, as we see in a sudden stratospheric warming event, that allows colder air and often as well more active weather patterns across more southern latitudes to occur. And especially in an El Nino like this, Eric Webb does mention that the pattern will probably try to flip to a cooler one again right around New Year's, which is on par for typical El Nino years. And he does show this too with guidance that does indeed back this up. This is more long range guidance, but he does show this is the December 2nd, the European weekly ensembles from December 2nd, so recent. And he does show right around New Year, like he's saying, you notice these blues instead of these oranges and yellows here. This represents troughing, and right along the East Coast and right along with what he says, more ridging in the northern latitudes, potential there for colder weather. And more stormier weather too. Maybe we'll get some severe weather, obviously, and kind of great transition into the Storm Prediction Center thing. This is the Storm Prediction Center page. This is where you would go if you want to check severe weather outlooks across the United States, and luckily right now we have nothing. Kind of good if we're really not looking for any severe weather right now, and typical, of course, as well for this time of year, December, January, winter months. We're really not known much for severe weather, especially not compared to months like February or even March, April, and especially those latter 2 months, April and May. So definitely normal for this time of year. We also have tomorrow as well. Not expecting much in terms of the way of severe weather. And then this is, I believe, for either Tuesday or Wednesday. Not sure, but day 3 outlook too. This one has no thunderstorms, no general thunderstorms area forecasted. And then days 4 to 8. Beyond that, the predictability is too low, or the potential is too low in all of these maps. So generally we're clear in terms of severe weather. Now, on to the tropical part of the discussion, because it is a hurricane outlook and discussion, off-season edition after all. So we do have to have some sort of hurricane tropics part to it. Taking a look at the sea surface temperatures across the globe. Kind of like to do these global shots more now. I guess as we get towards the season, that's when we'll start doing more regional shots, more specific to the Western Hemisphere. But for now, here's a global shot showing the Atlantic. Still very warm. But the most important piece of the puzzle right now is this El Nino. And I'll show you in just a little bit. It is quite strong. And so that definitely will help in terms of having an impact in how the pattern plays. And clearly, it does seem like it is having an impact on how winter will play out this year. And it certainly is, especially at the strength that it is. I'll show you in just a minute. But most importantly, the Atlantic still remains very warm, especially this patch off the northern coast of Africa and even off Western Africa too. And even the whole general deep tropics still averaging anywhere between 0.5 and at least 1 degree Celsius above normal too. And even look at that in the Gulf of Mexico, we're still warm there too. And this will actually be significant if this does hold through the winter, as we've seen in the last few years. You know, we've had a really warm Gulf, and that does persist into the winter and then into the spring following. That really does sometimes help energize some of these systems as they come across the United States, taking that Gulf moisture, and helps fuel severe weather events. As just generally how the pattern works, we have warm air from the Gulf, especially fueled by warmer sea surface temperatures, always notice how there is a correlation between warmer sea surface temperatures and more atmospheric moisture. Obviously mixes with any storm system that does come along across the United States, and it is just a perfect recipe for severe weather across the South. So we'll see how this persists and maybe how this could affect in the more near term severe weather season as we get into early next year. By the time we get to the early spring, that'll be very interesting for sure. But overall, very warm Atlantic, and that too, we'll have to see how this persists. This does, the Atlantic being warm and the way it is warm does actually also play a part into how the general Atlantic teleconnections play out as well for the winter, not just for hurricane season 2. And we'll go over that in another time. But that is also something interesting to point out as well. And I'll show you right now, as I did mention before, as I did promise to, Nino 3.4, the El Nino sea surface temperature anomaly right now, averaging out as of the latest value 1.9 degrees Celsius above normal. So we're definitely in strong El Nino category, and even just several days earlier we were up to 2.1 degrees Celsius, or right around that, above normals, and that is even getting into what people like to call super El Nino territory. So we're definitely in El Nino, and we're also heading into the month of December too. And I'll show you this just to kind of wrap it up. Notice here, as we did mention before, I think the last time I showed this was around October, and we did talk about how there was some cooling going on in the subsurface. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm looking at, this is an equatorial temperature anomaly in depth. So you know how we look at this graph, well, this is the surface of the entire globe. Just imagine this map, but let's say we take a slice of the equator, and instead of looking at the surface, we look at it going downward in depth in the ocean. And that's basically what this is. And this shows El Nino here along the equatorial region, where ENSO is most prominent in terms of its determination, obviously along the equator. But notice here, even in the last few weeks, we've seen much stronger values in the subsurface. So definitely indicative of El Nino still holding on strong. And as we head into December, which is the peak month, that's what I was going to say, December is usually the peak month for whatever ENSO event that we do get. Obviously that would help play a really good role into helping this strengthen and probably reach its peak by the time we get to later this month and into early January, when we'll see El Nino probably top out, I'd say somewhere, I guess, around 2 degrees Celsius or higher. But the question after that then remains, how quickly does this persist, and how quickly this builds in to the east, and how quickly this strengthens and starts to erode this away as we head into next year and as we head closer to the hurricane season. This is all very important, and if we're talking about hurricane season standpoint, this being warm and this being holding on strong and strengthening and probably going to help the peak of the El Nino later this month. This will be important for winter, but then this piece of the puzzle, as I would like to say, is more important, especially when we're talking about La Nina, because usually when we're starting to see kind of the peak of El Nino, this is how you know it: warm water in the eastern Pacific and central Pacific, and then we start to see this cold pool build in the western Pacific, and that is usually indicative we're reaching the peak of El Nino. And then once the El Nino starts to weaken, this moves to the east and eventually erodes this away, and maybe this comes up to the surface and maybe forms a La Nina. Kind of hinting, if you've been paying attention to global models, long-range global models, the monthly models like the CFS CANSIPS, if you've been paying attention to that within the last few days as they've been coming out for the month of December, you do know I am throwing a hint at you. Maybe, just maybe, we'll see La Nina next year. I have seen a lot of models talk about that, and a lot of people point out that the models have been going towards that direction. So we'll have to see. But again, a bunch of pieces of pieces of the puzzle that we just got to watch come together over the next few months, and we'll certainly do that. But obviously, right now, it's only things coming together very slowly. It is only December afterwards, and we are just a few days removed from the 2023 season. So a lot to still really track. And I guess for right now, it's more appropriate to focus on Enzo and its impacts on the winter, which we'll certainly do. But that is it for now. If you like what you saw today, I always encourage you, like, subscribe, comment, share, get this community going, and hopefully us build a community as we head into next season. That's my goal, and hopefully we're able to fulfill that. But obviously, if not, that's okay too. But I'm going to wrap it up. Enough of me. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm going to have my just routine videos on Saturday. So I did mention yesterday, today was kind of like a weird day kind of to make up for kind of things being delayed by a day or so this week. But we'll be back on schedule Saturday next week, and then every Saturday after that till around mid-May next year, as I outlined. So, with that being said, I'm going to close it off. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Peace, love, and kindness to all, and stay safe.